Star Wars is one of the most iconic franchises in history. Tons of movies, dozens of video games, and everybody has their own idea as to which ones are the best of the best. Well, today I'm going to give you our take on what the best Star Wars video games of all time are. I'm sure my list is going to probably be a little controversial, but that's what the comment section is for. My name is Jimmy, and today we are going to go over the top 10 best Star Wars videos. You let me know what your picks are down in the comment section. Drop a like, make sure you're subscribed, and let's jump in at number 10 with The Force Unleashed. Released all the way back in 2008. It was a huge deal. This had to have been one of the most heavily marketed Star Wars games of all time, and certain aspects of it might not have aged as well as others, but I think the complete package was pretty good. The story, which has since become non-canon, revolves around Darth Vader's secret apprentice in between episodes 3 and 4. You play as Starkiller, you roam around the galaxy, you hunt down the remaining Jedi who survived Order 66. But along the way, you learn more and more about the corruption of the Empire, the evil of Darth Vader, and the conflict between the dark and the light sides of the Force. You'll eventually be able to choose your own fate, but along the way, you will learn tons of awesome Force powers. You get to hack and slash your way through hundreds of stormtroopers. It's an iconic part of Star Wars history thanks to the popularity of Starkiller, and the gameplay still holds up. This is one of the most insane power fantasies in Star Wars to date. If you haven't played it, check it out. Just make sure you're playing either the 360, PS3, or PC version because the other versions of the game, they're completely different, and in my opinion, not as good. At number 9, Jedi Fallen Order. Respawn Entertainment made a name for themselves with the Titanfall franchise, so some people were skeptical when they announced they were making a single-player Star Wars game featuring melee combat inspired by Dark Souls. Massive departure from what the studio was known for, but they knocked it out of the park. Fallen Order released for the PC, PS4, and Xbox One in 2019. You played as Cal, a survivor of Order 66, in between episodes 3 and 4 as he tries to improve his knowledge of the Force and his skills as a Jedi, all while not getting caught by the Inquisitors who have been going planet to planet, finishing off any Jedi left in the galaxy. The combat is difficult to master, but it's extremely satisfying to lock in, and in between the combat sections, you are treated to some really fun exploration and cinematic set pieces, obviously inspired by the Uncharted and the reboot Tomb Raider games. It's a fantastic Star Wars game. It is. You should definitely give it a try if you have it, and we'll talk about the follow-up game soon. At number 8, Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, developed by Raven Software, released in 2003. It is a first and third-person action game that is actually the fourth game in the Jedi Knight series. You play as a young Jedi at Luke Skywalker's academy. You're following the destruction of the Empire, but during the rise of the mysterious cult of Dark Jedi. Throughout your journey, you'll learn what happened in the Star Wars universe after Episode 6, but before the Disney acquisition, you'll decide if you want to follow the light or the dark. The game is best known for its combat, which is really good. You can use lightsabers, blasters, force powers, anything you want along your journey. Despite it being over 20 years old, the gameplay holds up, which is pretty cool to see what Raven Software was up to before Activision recruited them for Call of Duty. Maybe one day, Raven will get to make the long-awaited follow-up game. At number 7, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Do you guys remember when movie tie-in games were good? They were never all good, but there used to be some good ones. And the tie-in game for Revenge of the Sith was really good, developed by a studio called The Collective. Revenge of the Sith is an action game with surprisingly deep lightsaber combat mechanics, and the story loosely follows the movie while also adding in some extra scenes and battle sequences. You will alternate between Anakin and Obi-Wan throughout the events of the movie, and it all culminates in a final battle between the two, and there's even a way to get an alternate ending where Anakin kills Obi-Wan, overthrows Darth Sidious, and becomes a new leader of the Empire. I mean, that's an awesome what-if style ending, and it was a great way to conclude the incredibly underrated game. I do believe the OG Xbox version is backwards compatible on the current Xbox consoles, so check it out if you have it. And if you did have this game back in the day, go play it again. At number 6, Jedi Survivor. Now, this game has had a ton of technical issues at launch. Most of the bugs have since been ironed out and allowed us to see the game for what it is. It features everything that Fallen Order had, but even better. Much bigger. More force powers, bigger levels, more saber options, combos, and a story that carries on where the last game left off. Jedi Survivor may have had a rough start. Certainly would have benefited from another 6 months or so in the oven, but if you boot it up now, you'll be treated to one of the best Star Wars experiences to date and one of the most satisfying video game combat loops ever. I said it. The combat in this game is absolutely incredible. I can't wait to see what the planned sequel has to offer. Hopefully Respawn and EA give it enough time to cook. Now we arrive at the top 5. Knights of the Old Republic. Many still see this game as some of BioWare's best work. I don't think it's quite surpassing the first couple Mass Effect games, but it's close. Knights of the Old Republic is an action RPG released for the PC and the original Xbox all the way back in 2003. It took place thousands of years before the original trilogy and told a captivating story about a Sith army attempting to overthrow the Galactic Republic with some pretty interesting and devious strategies. The gameplay was a bit choppy. It was 2003. Some of the voice acting's a little rough around the edges, but the story was fantastic. The world was great, the characters were great, the plot twists were absolutely insane. Knights of the Old Republic deserves to be remembered as one of the greatest Star Wars games of all time. And if the remake ever actually gets off the ground, it's a day one for me. If the remake is essentially just a graphical update and combat overhaul, but that keeps the story and the dialogue, I'll be one happy gamer. And number 4, Battlefront 2 2017. Now, I know, when the game started out, it was a mess. It was just pay-to-win mechanics everywhere. But it has since been updated into a completely different experience, and put simply, the current version of Battlefront 2 is excellent. Aside from having breathtaking visuals and sound design that will give every Star Wars fan an instant blast of nostalgia, the maps were good, the combat was awesome. It has to be one of the most immersive multiplayer games ever made. I know, there's balancing issues and some game modes can get a little repetitive. But at the end of the day, BF2 is exactly the game it set out to be from the start. Still has a huge community of players right now. If you want large-scale Star Wars battles with incredible visuals and amazing music and sound design, this is your game. Star Wars fans can lose hundreds of hours of their lives on this game, and for good reason. I still think there's a few other Star Wars games that are overall better, but Battlefront 2 2017 made an amazing comeback. At number 3, Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. Released all the way back in 2002, it was also developed by Raven, and even though the later games had more depth to the gameplay, I think Outcast is the one that best represents what made the series so special. Instead of playing as a student at a Jedi temple, you instead play as a mercenary hired by the New Republic in the years following the fall of the Empire in Episode 6. Your character is a Jedi, but he's severed his connection to the Force, and new missions pushes you back to your Jedi ways as you try to stop a branch of the Imperial Remnant led by a Dark Jedi trying to build up an army of Force users. This is kind of what always happens. The plot is good, though. It does a great job of showing what Episode 6 would have led to if the sequel trilogy was never made. And just like the other Jedi Knight games, Jedi Outcast has incredible combat. It's aged like fine wine, and there's even an awesome multiplayer mode that some of you watching this video may have experienced. Definitely a good one. At number 2, Republic Commando. Can you imagine if a squad-based tactical shooter set in the Star Wars universe was announced right now? The internet would blow up, and I kind of doubt any major publisher would even try this concept in the modern gaming world, but back in 2005, LucasArts graced us with Republic Commando, a dark, gritty, visceral, intense tactical FPS set during the Clone Wars and featuring some of the greatest clone armor of all time. Your squad of clone commandos is sent on a series of missions during the early years of the Clone Wars, and the gameplay involves intense firefights, slow exploration, and overcoming obstacles that you would have to use creative squad commands and weaponry to overcome. It is one of the best single-player FPS games ever made, if you ask me. It's absolutely one of the best Star Wars games ever made. It's a little disappointing. The story is technically non-canon now, but thankfully, the Clone Commando armor lived through Star Wars projects, including Battlefront 2. And at number 1 today, there's no doubt, Battlefront 2 2005. I could be a bit blinded by nostalgia, but I have no hesitation calling the original Battlefront 2 the single best Star Wars games of all time. May not have the amazing visuals of 2017, but it has incredible immersion thanks to the music, sound design, and locations you fight in, plus the gameplay is good. Like all the other Battlefront games, you drop into a huge map as one of several Star Wars factions as you slaughter each other by the hundreds while earning credits to spawn in iconic characters from the prequel and OT eras. But what sets this one apart from the rest is the sheer amount of content. You had a full-fledged story mode, you had tons of maps, special units to play, you had an insane custom game option, and you had Galactic Conquest, perhaps the best multiplayer game mode of all time. It is everything a Star Wars fan could ever want out of a video game, and I highly recommend getting it on Steam because there's still people playing it to this day. Just make sure you don't get the re-release from earlier this year. Get the original. And there you have it. Those are our picks for the 10 best Star Wars games of all time. Let us know where we got it right. Let us know where we got it wrong.